Today we're going to bring you the amazing story of Nissim Baruch Black, born Damian Jamal Black. Originally a non-Jewish secular artist, under the name of D. Black, he released 2 successful albums. After a hard life and long journey of soul-searching in Christianity and in Islam, he retired and started to focus on his conversion to Orthodox Judaism. Nissim, an American rapper and producer from Seattle, Washington, has returned under his new Hebrew name Nissim and has begun writing from a more religious standpoint. Today, Nissim lives in Israel with his wife and his children and is a successful rapper both in the Jewish community as well as the secular world. Hello, Nissim, and welcome to Yentas in the City.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Thank you.
Happy to have you.
Yes, thank you
guys
Vanessa.
so much.
Welcome to Yentas in the City. Can you please discuss your life growing up in Seattle and what led you to your conversion to Judaism? Also, if you could touch upon how you got started in the rap world and worked with artists such as Vitamin D, Jay-Z, and 50 Cent, one of my personal favorites.
Amazing. So yeah, I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and I was very much so exposed. I think a lot of it was the fact that I was exposed to street life very early on. Both of my parents dealt drugs originally. I started myself when I was only 12. I was already smoking pot by the time I was 9 years old. So I had lived a pretty fast life, and I grew up in it, and seeing everything was very much so in front of me. Nothing was hidden from me. Just sort of the lifestyle that I was exposed to. Along with that, a very beautiful beginning that I had. My first rap record that I was able to record, I was 13 years old. My parents originally were the first rappers in Seattle. So they started hip hop really in Seattle, Washington, where I'm from. And so it's very interesting because I didn't know that until I got a little older. And I realized that that may have been the source of the reason for my love for music that I've loved ever since I was a kid. And so through that, I just continued to grow and really fix my craft as much as I could, getting around other producers. Like I said, I recorded with Vitamin D when I was 13 years old, and he sort of took me under his wing almost as a little brother. And sorry, my kids are like busting in, like I said.
That's so cute.
Nah, man, I have a gift. Here, go get this to Maya, okay? All right, shut Abba's door. Thank you. Sorry. So my love for music never waned, and like my exposure never changed. So that would lead to both lives. And one of the biggest things and misconceptions is that that these things are synonymous: street life, rap music, hip hop, or whatever. And the truth is that they don't have to exist together. But even myself, at the beginning, it's very hard for me at the beginning of my Jewish journey. Just to jump around a little bit, my first introduction to religion was Islam. My grandfather was a Sunni Muslim. I would go to the mosque with him as a kid and pray with him 5 times a day. My parents at the time were not religious. And my grandfather, unfortunately, ended up going back to prison. He was, sort of lived somewhat of a double life. He was very religious, but at the same time, it was very hard, the street life that he grew up in also too. It was very hard for him to shake that past, and eventually it haunted him, and he ended up in prison where he eventually passed away. But from the time that my grandfather went to prison until I was at least 13, 14, I would have told people I was a Muslim because that was the religion that I knew. Now, by that time, I had already joined the gang. I was a part of Gangster Disciple Nation, GDN, BGD, as other people will refer to it as in its earlier years, and just being wild. But if you ask me on religion, I would say I was a Muslim. And right around 13, 14, I got involved in a hip hop program at the Union Gospel Mission. And sorry, my Nachman. Nachman.
Hi.
He doesn't have any club.
So
sorry.
Oh, so cute.
But anyway, I would end up going to. Hold on, you have to wait now. Okay, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
All right. So anyway, I would end up going to this Union Gospel Mission for a hip hop program that was very life changing. I think one of the biggest things was the fact that I got to be around people who were very loving and very caring, and it was a very beautiful experience for me. And that love and that care eventually led me to convert to Christianity. So years that went on, went through high school, went through the motions. I was still releasing music and mixtapes, and things started to spread. And right around the age of 20, I think I was 20 years old, my rap career started really taking off. And there was another rapper I got into an altercation with, and it got very, very dark. And to make a long story short, I ended up in a kill or be killed situation, and I really had to make some life decisions. And it was only through Hashem's mercy that I was able to put the situation behind me, and we were able to come to terms. And I remember after I was basically rescued pretty much from a situation that could have ended very bad. I started praying and praying and praying, and I tried to remember for myself, how did I get there? I had times of my youth when, after I converted to Christianity, I became very, very strong in it. I read my Bible very often. I prayed to God a lot, and I really connected to prayer. And even reading, interestingly enough, the Old Testament, Tanakh, I was very, very into it. And somehow, through influence and through a lot of different people that I was around, really pushed me to have a different mindset that took me out of it. And when I spent that time praying after getting out of that situation, I started to think a lot about the origins of my faith. I started to have a lot of questions just internally, things that I always wanted to know and never felt like I had the answers to. So I started researching on my own, and Judaism was screaming at me. I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood, although I wasn't involved in, and I wasn't even so close to my Jewish neighbors. I would walk through a shul every day to go to school myself. And I played basketball behind it. I used to ride my bike in the Sephardi shul, the actual shul I was in the Dyer in. So I did have this interest to sort of know what was going on, but I never really tried to scratch that itch, if you would. And so when I was alone and I started to think and I started to look up the origins of religion, both Christianity and Islam, I found Judaism. So that was sort of like the beginning of everything for me.
It's so inspiring.
Thank you so much.
Nissim, since 2016, you exploded on the Jewish music scene with Hashem Melech. The first time you openly spoke about Hashem, God, in a rap. With your permission, we'd like to sing the song with you. We'll sing the melody and you will sing the rap. Is that okay with you?
Our only issue is Kol Isha.
Oh, okay. So we'll skip that part. We'll skip that part. It's good. We should have thought about that, coming from an Orthodox community.
It's okay. No worries. Just mute it when you guys sing.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, how did you meet Gad Elbaz, and what started the relationship between you two?
Very good questions. Well, a lot of people don't know. It's a very interesting thing. Technology is amazing because I didn't meet Gad Elbaz until we were ready to shoot Hashem Melech, personally. What happened was we had me and God shared a mutual friend, a friend of mine, Elon Cohen, and I really have to give the credit to Elon for this song and this amazing collaboration, which would really change my life. And I felt like, God himself also too it gave him also a big boost in his career also, as he mentioned to me also, that Elon reached out to me after we had made acquaintance through Aish. I want to say maybe through Nehemiah Cooper Smith, maybe that connected us. But Elon and I, and Nehemiah Cooper Smith runs Aish.com. So Elon and I both had interesting stories that were published on Aish.com, and I think the musical background sort of was like the inspiration of us connecting. And I remember him reaching out to me one day and asking me have I ever heard the song Hashem Melech? And I was like, of course, my kids love the song. I had been a fan of the song. What was interesting was that the year before even talking to him, I went on the tour myself, a Hanukkah tour, and that was the very song that I used to play to get everybody pumped up in between the set. I would play Hashem Melech, just God's version, him and Benny alone. And then Elon asked me, would I be interested in possibly doing a remix to it? And I said, of course, why not? So he arranged it. I, and God Elbas, got on the phone, and we sort of like just, traded ideas and different ways of like being able to make it something, 2016. I think originally he had released it in maybe 2013, 2012, the first version, and I which was great, but it was like it needed to be spiced up, and it was hard for God also too. He's like, well, I already did that song, and so I think Elon really gave it a big push, and God obviously with his amazing talent, we just sort of all put our heads together. I recorded mine in Seattle originally, and then he recorded in Israel. We sort of put everything worked in between engineers, and then we flew to New York and shot a video. That we didn't know at the time what people were going to take of it, We had no idea. And I really myself didn't really even know there was a Jewish music scene until after that song came out. So a lot of surprises came with it.
Wow.
Great. Nissim, there is controversy about rap in the yeshivish world. They ask, is rap kosher? But I believe the real question should be, can rap be kosher? Can you comment about that?
Yeah, I think so. I think, one of the things I've been really wrestling with over the past, 2-3 years, just as I've been making music and my primary audience, as though I've seen and noticed over the last year, whatever, starting to shift a little bit, has been primarily religious Jews in the Orthodox world of many different spectrums and, observance, but generally people that observe it, from conservative to observant, maybe now dealing with a lot more people that are more secular, also a lot of non-Jewish fans also. But one of the things that I've noticed just in my own personal growth as an individual, as an artist, is that there's a lot of controversy behind music in general, and the more and more I grew, I started to realize, and I started to face opposition myself. In the beginning, it wasn't so much. I didn't see it at the very, very beginning. But as time went on, we come to Israel, things have become a little bit more blunt. And even though, I hate to paint a picture that's not true also, because in terms of my own personal experience, I would say 95% of what I receive is nothing but love and awesome reviews from people. It's a very seldom do I hear anything negative about either me or my music or anything like that. But I think one of those things that we have a natural thing to do is like we sort of look for that 5% to see what, how they feel about it. And I think honestly, like, to be quite honest, I have a love for every single year, but I realized over this past, I would say strong year and a half that my target audience isn't the yeshiva world, and it's not something that, and at one point it was like, I don't have a target audience. Whoever's listen. But I started to realize that, what is it that Hashem could use me for, and what is my purpose? What's tachlis for Nissim? And I sort of just put my head down. I went to the tzaddikim in Yerushalayim, my Rebbe Rav Arush, obviously, who I lean on to for Eitzah and advice. And I'm on a mission, you know what I mean? And so I really, really don't pay attention as much to what people say or anything like that, because I'm so positive that I'm doing what I feel that Hashem wants me to do, that I can't care about what anybody else has to do. So if people are spending their time and their time of their learning and their hisbodedus asking Hashem what type of music Nissim should be making, I think they should be worried about themselves. Because my thing is that I feel like very much so that I've seen the fruits of my labor. I've seen how many neshamas, how many people come closer to Hashem as a result of what I'm doing. And I've seen both in the Jewish world and outside the Jewish world. So it's very clear to me that I'm doing what I need to be doing right now.
Yes. And how do you feel about censorship?
I feel like it's a very, very important thing. Things should be censored. Depends on into what degree. You have a very interesting thing. I mean, now overall, you know, as it comes to the Yiddish world, I'll be honest. Like my kids listen to Shweki. They listen to Mordechai Shapiro and Barry Weber. They love Zusha, probably because I love Zusha a lot also too. So my kids listen to traditional music all the time. But you know what? My kids would never be able to pick out any of these singers out of a lineup. I don't allow my kids to watch videos, not even Abba's videos they don't get to see. Technology, until Zoom was the only forced way for school, that was a decision that me and my wife made. Do I think people are wrong for allowing their kids to watch? Obviously not. But we made a decision as a family that we wanted our kids to have books and different things like that and to play outside as much as possible and not to be addicted to screens, right? So that was our decision that we made as a family, not saying that, oh, it's wrong. We don't tell our kids it's bad, or people that do it, they're bad. We don't allow it in the house. That's it. Purely, that's it. So I think each person has to make a decision for themselves what they need to have and what they don't need to have in the homes and what they need to expose their children to. But I'm not a big fan of, and at some point we know we have to expose our children to things, but we just want to do it gradually. We want to do it with what our Rebbe says is at the right time and with the right things. Zoom is one thing. We like to show them like an app I showed on my phone. I have Seforim on my phone that I learned from. I was showing my son this the other day to say, look at what you could do with technology. So I think it's sort of one of those things like, each person themselves have to decide what it is for themselves that they will allow. It's not objective, but it's subjective. There's no clouding with these type of things because each neshama is different, each child is different, and each community is different. So if you want to raise your kids like they live in Mea Shearim and you live in a modern Orthodox neighborhood, you're going to have a problem, right? So I think censorship is a little bit more, it should be more subjective and more than objective.
Wow.
Thank you.
Nissim,
Thank you.
one of the main reasons I personally got really excited, or Karen too, obviously, to have you on the show, because to me you represent what Judaism should be about, really. Because, one of the reasons we made Yentas in the city is we noticed, especially now with anti-Semitism going up, there were a lot of Jews among ourselves that were judging people. Oh, he's Ethiopian, this one is black, this one is white. I'm Orthodox. And there was a lot of judgment going around. And what Karen and I try to do with this show is to bring through artists like you and through actors and to show people we are all Jewish. Yeah, we might be, we might be in different level of Judaism. And I think one of my favorite songs of yours is Motherland. And the reason, really, because in the song, you show the conflict, the inner conflict that we all have. My kids were brought up in Orthodox community, Orthodox schools, but now I'm not as Orthodox. And I always have that conflict within myself. For example, Karen is very Orthodox, and but she's very exposed to the secular world through her job. And
I told you one of my favorite artists was 50 Cent, and I'm religious.
It's true. So, and I think what you represent is that inner conflict that we all have. And for somebody like you that was exposed to everything, to Christianity, Islam, choosing to be Jewish is a very difficult thing.
Right.
I wanted to ask you, recently there was a cultural division between the African American community and the Jewish religious community. How do we understand your video for Motherland Bounce from a Jewish perspective as well as from African American perspective, because I think you really showed both worlds in your video and in the song that touched my heart, and it represents all of us in some way.
Right, right. I think, you know, I was doing another interview after we released Motherland Bounce that sort of touched on this a little bit, and you know, I feel like, you know, if there's any people groups, sorry if you hear the snoring there, he's stone cold. This one's my sidekick. He doesn't go anywhere without me. He won't go to sleep unless I'm there.
I think it's such an honor to have him on the show.
Thank you.
I don't think anybody else that interviewed you got that privilege.
Nobody. This is like the first time any of my kids.
Only the Yentas.
You knew the Yentas show.
Hey, right. You guys got it. So I think the thing is for me is that, you know, that was very heart-wrenching for me to watch, you know, this past Hanukkah. And not only like this was the only time. There's been many other issues, and I feel like, you know, a lack of dialogue causes these type of issues. You know, from unless you're either modern Orthodox or have had some exposure, you know, a great deal in the outside world, you may be unaware of the African American struggle and what they've gone through. You know, as far as, you know, far as concerned, don't really have a real handle on it. You may know about slavery, but we don't know how deep it was, you know, and for sure, me as an African American, growing up, I went to predominantly African American school and grew up in that system. I didn't know. I'm not saying everybody's like this, but I'm just saying me personally, I didn't know anything about the Holocaust or what it was, anything until I started searching, you know, actively and looking into Judaism, really. So that was a part of education that was missed from me. So I feel like the lack of knowing what's going on, it creates somewhat of an inwardly, because all we have right now is you have, you know, I don't know statistics, so I'm not a numbers guy. All I can talk about is the way that I grew up and what I see through my own lenses and my own eyes. What the actual numbers are, I don't know. But I can tell you definitely what it appears as, and we know these based off of stereotypes or whatever. It would generally seem and appeal to be that the most of the African American world appears. I'm just saying appears. I don't know what the numbers are. Appears to be, you know, in somewhat of a struggle in terms of class, meaning financially, and sort of like, you know, at the bottom of the totem pole of society is what it appears. And it appears as if Jews run everything, they own everything, they're the ones in control, right? And I feel like I don't know who or how or what, but I feel like there's something in between that paints that picture. It's not really coming from Yidden, it's not coming from the African American community, but it's fed. And it's fed and it's fed and it's fed by others that create this in order to navigate things in a way from them politically, financially, and I feel like it's a miss, like, because we're not realizing that, you know, American hands, right, are covered in the blood of African American slavery, Atlantic slave trade. Also, too, what a lot of people fail to realize, very much so involved with Hitler, Yimach Shemo, and in Germany during the time of Holocaust. America's hands aren't clean from that, right? So there's a very interesting dynamic of, you know, of these two groups being pointed in, and very similar. You see it definitely in the East Coast, usually living very close within each other, within the radius of each other. It's almost like this thing is built up to some degree, and I feel like it's a setup, you know, because quite honestly, you know, I have a friend, Zacharia Levine. He says this all the time, so it's not mine, so it's not original for me, but he always says that if Jews were, quote unquote, if they were white, then white people wouldn't have treated them like the way they did in Europe, right? If it's like, hey guys, we're all white, then that's it. So the finesse in the lie is that, oh, you're one of us, until guess what happens until we get to the United Nations. Then no, we point and say it's the Jews. So it's almost like this power play of everything in between, when really there's so much struggle and so many different things to unite these communities that will be able to bring forth, I think, both tremendous fruits and power and awesome, relationship between the two communities, and being able to fight against oppression and all the different things that have, been used, sort of against the communities for so many different years. So with Motherland Bounce, what I saw was the opportunity basically to represent both sides. And I guess one of my things is that what I wanted to do was I wanted to really hit, really three different groups with that song. I wanted that when Yidden would hear the song, they would feel proud to be a Yid. I wanted when Black people heard that song, they would be proud to be Black. And I wanted that people that were also people of many different, multi-different backgrounds, which I've dealt with over the last few years, that have been Garam, that have come into Yiddishkeit, that have always felt like, wow, I got to hide who I am, or I have to be cookie cutter into the community now, and whatever. Now, certain things that is when it comes to halacha, and there's definitely a definition of how a Yid behaves. But generally, this is by the tzaddikim, and it's not by the neighborhoods. You understand? Or the community that a person lives in. We can look at the map is by the tzaddikim, and if you look at every single tzaddik, I've gone to many different types of tzaddikim and gedolim. Each one has their own avoda, and each one of them are different. There's a certain individuality that's not amongst the cookie cutter. Everybody is the same. I mean, those people are the same, but the people that stand out are the people that are really serving Hashem. And so I felt like, in order for me to really be able to serve Hashem the way that I need to embrace everything that I came from. And I felt like Hashem was revealing it to me more and more until I ended up making that song, and really feeling like, I was able to make something that people from many different backgrounds were able to celebrate,
Well, I want to tell you that it touched my heart.
Yeah.
And the entire message you tried to come across, it actually went through, because when I saw that, I almost started crying. Other than singing, beautiful song.
I think the video was filmed in New York, correct?
It was filmed in Harlem, in a gentrified Harlem. Can you imagine, like, in a gentrified Harlem, I want to say, or, which is a very interesting thing also, too. There was a lot of Yidden around that was even standing by, taking pictures or recording or whatever. And I thought about it, I was like, this is a gentrified Harlem. There's a lot of property here owned by Jews, even good friends of mine or whatever. And I'm dancing with other brothers who are from this neighborhood originally in Harlem.
Wow.
Where the neighborhood's been gentrified. It was like, you don't understand, like, what Hashem was doing, like, and the effect and the hashpah that it had on everybody that was involved, all the dancers, and the dancers for sure, and the people that were involved, and community-wise, they looked at Jews differently after that, because they had a whole different perspective. It was a kiddush Hashem mamish.
Right.
Was it hard for you emotionally to do it?
Yeah, emotionally, yes, for sure, because you don't know how people are going. It's almost like, it's almost like I let my hair down, and all of a sudden people just like, wow, Nissim Black. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I had to sort of like get ready to like expect, like, people just like, wow, what happened? Like, no, I happen to be African American. And I'm also Yid. I'm a Yid first, you know what I'm saying? I think anybody, that faith should be before whatever the religion, whatever the ethnicity is. But I definitely felt like, in the reaction's been love. It's been great. And, like I said, I knew that it wasn't for everybody, but now it's more clear for me who my target audience is, and for the sake of being able to glorify and put Hashem's name in places where it may have never been. So.
I really believe the album is an artistic expression of who you were and who you are. And you sort of answered it, but my question to you would be, can you be pro-Black and pro-Jewish at the same time? And I would say, of course. And, you know, it was funny, but as I was thinking of that question to ask you, I was thinking of this song. It just kept going in my head. I don't know if you remember. Did you ever see the parody about, you know, the song Black and Yellow? That rap
Black
song?
and Yellow.
You
Yeah,
heard
I think, who was that? That was Wiz Khalifa?
it was by Wiz Khalifa. So because that song was so popular when it came out, they came out with a parody of that song called Black and Jewish. Did you ever hear that song?
Never got to see that one.
Okay, so you'll have to Google that song, Black and Jewish. It's a parody to Wiz Khalifa's Black and Yellow. And it's all the artists that are Black and Jewish. And as I was writing that question, I was thinking, in my head, I was going Black and Jewish, because you have to hear the song. It's a great song.
I never saw it, and when Karen showed it to me, I was laughing so hard. She just showed it to me yesterday.
That's so funny. You know, it's like, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, it's okay to be proud of who you are as an individual and proud of who you are and what you come from, and to take the good things from your culture that you grew up with, because all of those things are a special ingredient. Whatever person's tikkun is, you weren't born into the family that you were born into, in the community that you were in, and with all the kishronos and talents and gifts that you were given for no reason. It's like to erase that and to throw that away and not be able to reach. You know, unfortunately, I grew up in the neighborhood. It's very hard to find African American males that are you know, positive role models to look up to. I mean, I think right now there's a consciousness of it that people are growing and elevating. I even see my own family like making major changes. I was very happy to go back to see a lot of people doing very well and having a different perspective on life. But you know, those things, honestly speaking, they weren't easy to come by growing up. So if I have a position, you know, I'm looking at how many different yidden, how many kids I've helped around the world, and something in my neshama started screaming, just like, hold on, what about all those kids? What about the little youths that were out there, you know, hanging out and all that? You know, you can't not influence them also. So it's a very important thing for me to be able to inspire everybody. Everybody needs to know Hashem.
When you were growing up, who were some of the rappers you looked up to, and who inspired you lyrically?
I think lyrically, definitely Biggie Smalls, Jay-Z, and Nas were like my favorite. You know, I had a kick also to journey.This was one of my favorites listening to growing up. So he's out. So definitely, I would say, you know, Jay-Z was probably my all-time favorite rapper, really growing up as a kid. He held the flag for long. You know, I would go back and forth. Big was there, Nas, and then Jay-Z sort of like took it and ran with it to my adult years.
Could you see yourself collaborating with any of them today in like something like clean rap, something that is more of your style?
You know, I've asked the question, and I've talked to, you know, certain Rebbeim about it. My Rebbe also, I've talked to him about it. It is possible, but there's just a lot of prerequisites to it, and it's a lot of like, you know, if it can happen, and Hashem will want it to happen in the right way, for sure. How many people would I be able to reach? But I definitely wouldn't be able to do a song with somebody that's talking about things that are against my values. So, but I definitely wouldn't turn down the opportunity to work with, you know, say Kanye. You know, I always say, like, you know, right now in the wider world, in the secular world, the war against God is so great that, you know, we need more people of God, no matter, you know, whether you're Christian, you're Muslim, whatever the case is, that if you are fighting for God's sovereignty to be into the world, and we have universal things where we all agree, right? So that war is much greater than the war on the pratim of who's right about this, who's right about that, because all those things don't matter in terms of when everybody's at risk. We're all at risk in not being able to practice religion freely. We're all at risk of our kids being exposed to so much that they no longer want to hold on to the faith, right? So we sort of have to have allies with others that want to fight this war.
I could see you collaborating with Drake.
Right.
I would love to do something with Drake.
Drake is a member of the tribe.
Right.
I know. MOT. We got to bring him to Israel. He's never been.
Right.
Got to bring him home for a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to. It's
So,
definitely great. Very, very talented. And honestly, I don't know him personally. I know people that know him, but I do see from just watching him and seeing his Pintalayid shines through very much so. And I feel like he's a very gentle soul, and whatever. The game is the game, but he seems to be an awesome person.
amazing. So let me ask you, groups like the Hebrew Israelites and Black Lives Matter, they haven't seen many African-American Jewish rappers. They might think you're not proud of your African-American culture and heritage. What can your music say to people who have mixed conceptions about you as a person?
I think over time, as things are going and as the new music rolls out and new content, a lot of those things are there. I mean, I just tell you from recent, comments, you may see them on YouTube, you may see them, and I see them a lot in my inboxes, my email, and different things like that. But a lot of them are at odds because they really want to convert me, and they think I'm nuts and I'm crazy and I'm following the wrong path. But they really, really like my music, and so the kind of the conflict of sort of having to deal with that. And I just I don't have a lot of energy. I think that the more and more, like I said, it's not only a war for God, but in these instances when even religion, it's not just a war against it's the war also against when religion, politics, whatever it is used in any way to basically discredit other groups and other people from their faith and different things like that. That really, really, it really bothers me. These things need to be eliminated really with kindness. So I feel like the more and more that I be me, that these things will fall to the side. But it has been to the level of harassment. I would definitely say with the Hebrew Israelite camp on my end. And I don't think it's everybody. I have to tell you that a lot of people don't know. There's a very loud group, just like we have in Breslov we have a lot of Nana, beautiful people, but they dance. A lot of them dance on cars, and then so people that are unaware of Breslov, they would think that is Breslov. That everybody that does that is Breslov, but you're not Breslov. Same thing with Chabad. There's a big movement of Mashiachis, and so everybody thinks if you're Chabad, you believe the Rebbe is Mashiach, and whatever. Each person has their shita, but that's not everybody in Chabad. So I think that what a lot of people don't realize is there's beautiful, beautiful groups that are really faith and honest, soul searching African Americans that identify as Israelites that are not screaming at people, are not pushing hatred, are not saying they're the real Jews and anybody from Europe or Spain or whatever. It's not. So, it's just one of those things that is highlighted, and I've been comforted knowing that, these guys are not all, and they're for sure not the majority. And I feel that the more and more people know that there's peaceful people out there searching, it'll help in the end, and my own story will also create a different narrative for people.
Nissim, we are really excited about your new song, Win. I'm dying to hear it already. Which you'll be releasing on a video on the 22nd of May.
Can't wait.
Right.
What a powerful name, Win. I'm dying. Can you give our followers a sneak preview of the lyrics?
Is it? Okay, I can. Let me see what I can remember. Win, 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 win. You know what? Let me pull it up actually. What's funny is that I've been like trying, when you're working on something, and this video for us was a very, very, very big production. The song also too was, song didn't take up half as much as the videos been taking up. I really put my heart and soul to it. and there's also a guest appearance inside the video sneak. Something I'm very excited about. Good friend, a very well-known friend of mine, came to join me in the video, so I'm excited about that. That's going to be a goodie. But let me see what I have here.
So excited.
You want me to do something live?
We promise you we'll release after the 22nd.
I know. Okay, so let me see what I have. I ain't catch feelings, but I got a heart. I'm like I'm King David, I'm playing the harp. Look for the ending before it'll start. But they put together, but take it apart. Don't really know why. Don't really care if they know who we are. I'm keeping it real because I work for the boss. When they say it's done, I say it's a loss. I came by myself, I ain't paying them all. So,
wow. Amazing.
Wow. It's fabulous.
This song is very, very deep. On the surface, it's going to sound very chitoni, but when you listen to the words, you're going to hear them. It's a very, very deep, and because of the context of the song, I don't want to give it away because the video is definitely going to tell the story. But it's based on Likutei Moharan, the song, a very, very awesome piece of Likutei Moharan that talk about the Shari Kedusha. So you guys are gonna have to see, and I don't want to give away too much.
All right.
I love your success story. You inspire me. You inspire a lot of young kids because we have teenagers at home, so we hear your music all the time playing it. That's how I was exposed to you. I'm like, who is that? It sounds so good. And you don't know Nissim Black? And then I was addicted. So now Ken and I, two Yentas, are sitting in my car and listening to your music.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Yes.
It really means a lot to me. It really means a lot.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
Before we close out, I just wanted to ask you, what would be the message you'd want to bring to the world?
I think I want to bring a message to the world is that, there's a Hashem in the world. There's a God in the world who loves you. And I think that the overall thing that, prevents us from being able to grow as a society and as a human race is a lack of that knowledge and not really knowing that, that there's a God there that loves us. Everybody knows about, what happens if you don't do the right thing and all these other things. But I think the power of love of God and the love of humanity can definitely bring us to not only amazing results, but it'll bring us to every single person to our purpose. So that's my message for the world is God's love.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
We wish you best of luck, Nissim, because really you are everything that we want to represent in our show.
That's right.
You guys know. I'm a reflecting light. It's the light bouncing off of you. It's coming back to you. That's all.
Nissim, this was an amazing interview. We thank you. Your journey to success, both professionally and personally, is inspirational to us all. We wish you much success with your album and the new song, Win. We hope to have you again on the Yentas in the city, and promise us the next time you're in LA, you will join Etsy and I for Shabbat dinner at our house.
Now
Be babysitting with our kids.
We cook very well. We really want to thank you.
I can tell.
We do. We really want to thank you again for joining us. We would also like to thank all of our followers for listening to this episode. Please remember, you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Yentas in the City. If you could also write us at dearyentas@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you and answer your letters on our weekly advice column. We would like to thank our team, Frank and Sharon, and special thanks to Ellie for all the behind-scenes work to bring this episode together. And lastly, we want to thank our sponsors, Soft Smart Systems International and Conquest Realty Investments. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we have a lot more coming. Until next time, this is Karen Cohen and Etty Elkis, and we are Yentas in the City.
Thank you so much, Nissim.
Thank you.